Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Jerry Miller. It's good to be with you on a rainy Wednesday across Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, and the world on the I Love CVille network. This program spotlights the best of Charlottesville, Virginia. We do that through the eyes of entrepreneurs, through the eyes of local political leaders, through the eyes of heads of nonprofits, through people who are making a positive impact on our community. Today's guest embodies those qualities. Peter McMindes, our guest, the owner and brewmaster at Rockfish Brewing Company. His operation opens later this month on Preston Avenue. I'm so excited to talk about what's happening with him and his brand and the evolution of his business. The ecosystem for craft beer in Charlottesville is robust, it's strong, it's healthy, and it's undoubtedly making our community better, whether through tax revenue, whether through driving tourism, whether through keeping folks like me that live in this community, that have been in this community for 19, 20 years, happy with things to do with our families. It's a special time in America when moms and dads, husbands and wives like myself and Lauren can take our son to a brewery, have some beers, and not get stared at. I love it. Peter on the program in a matter of moments. Let's thank some of the people that make the show possible. First, let's welcome one of our newest sponsors, Anderson Seafood and Catering. Ted Anderson, since 1929, and his family have been the go-to seafood market and caterer in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. V&V Brands is an advertising agency. We represent hundreds of clients, two of our favorite interstate pest and service companies, and Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. First, Interstate. The business started in 1969 with the first generation, Mr. Robert Wells. He used a personal truck and a dream to build a company. In 1969, he went to his first client, serviced them successfully, and then would find the closest payphone, put a nickel in the slot of the payphone, and call his second customer and say, "Can I go to your home now?" Today, Interstate Pest and Service Companies, 4 generations of family running the business, almost 100 employees, and a working professional footprint of the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. It's awesome. Also, we'll give some props to the doctor, Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Anything that you see from a marketplace standpoint, TV, radio, print, graphic design, social media, photo, video, originates on the first 2 floors of this building for Interstate and Dr. Wagner. Scott Wagner, pest control, Scott Wagner's physical therapy, chiropractic care, and sports medicine. He's changing people's lives, guys. All right, Judah, you're the director. Let's go to the studio cam. Judah Wickower. Let's welcome Peter to the show. Dude, I am super pumped for what you got going on. I think you could probably tell. First, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
An absolute pleasure. I can't wait to talk about one of my favorite things, beer, undoubtedly one of your favorite things. Before we get to the to craft beer and your brand, how about introduce us to what makes you tick? Who is Peter? Passions, hobbies, and interests.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a father of 2, one in college, one in high school, so I've got the teenage thing going on right now.
Does it get easier? Because we're 18 months in and it's hard as fuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a different schism, sort of say. You know, I mean, you go from a lot of care that's physical into a more of a kind of a mental following game where it's a game of catch up. But no, I love them both. They're great kids. You know, lucky that they just had a great situation growing up, and they're doing well. So,
your son in Chicago in college as an 18-year-old freshman.
Yep, that's right, first year. Yeah.
Super talented guy. Why don't we do this? And I'm putting you on the spot here. Get the Rockfish logo on the screen here. You got to be a proud dad. Your boy designs the logo.
Yep.
For the business. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cal, who's my oldest son, has always been a really great artist. And so. Went to the Renaissance School here in Charlottesville. We're really focused, on the art situation. And I asked him to get some ideas for developing some logos, even before I had a name. And then when I kind of came down on the name, he started doing some drawings, just with a pencil and sketching. And then did a few final drafts for me and came up with what we have now. So it ended up being a really fantastic logo. Just the detail was spectacular. He digitized it, got it up on, whatever he does on his, super iPad or Mac. And it just was a fantastic situation. Ended up having a great logo and really glad he did it. So
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Please let them know. How about your birth story? Where'd you grow up? Childhood, what was that like?
Well, I kind of moved all over growing up. I had a single mother who was finishing college when I was in Oregon growing up there. So she ended up going to vet school and becoming a veterinarian out in Oregon and Washington. So born in Logan, Utah, moved out to Oregon and Washington for my elementary school years. She was originally from the East Coast, so we ended up moving back to the East Coast to Pennsylvania, where she started practicing medicine, so I was there for a while. I'm an only child, so it's just the two of us. So, she's a very independent spirit, very travel-oriented, kind of adventurous-oriented person, and very kind of self-made kind of person. And that kind of goes on my whole side, on my mother's side of my family. My grandfather was the same way, and he was kind of my father figure, very business-like man, self-made. Entrepreneur, yeah. He flew in the Navy in World War II, and then he opened up a bunch of businesses and managed banks and had brick companies and slag companies and all sorts of things over Pennsylvania and Jersey. And he was a good inspiration in terms of what you can do, in terms of being an entrepreneur, being good at business, being generalized in terms of your skill set, and applying those, to the market. So he was really good at that. It rubbed off on the whole family. My mother was very similar. She built a successful veterinary practice in Jupiter, Florida, which she's been there now for over 20 years now, and is semi-retired and just travels all over the country when she's not practicing medicine in her Airstream. So she just did a big distillery and whiskey tasting tour all over Kentucky and Tennessee and that sort of thing.
In an Airstream?
In an Airstream.
That's the dream right there.
Yeah, with her two dogs, just kind of going at it, having a great time. So
I love it.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it was. For me, I stayed up in Pennsylvania. I went to a boarding school up there called the Hill School, and my mother had moved to Florida. I followed down and ended up going to school at University of Florida. Both
Gators?
Gators,
Yeah.
man. Yep.
You a football fan?
If it's the Gators,
right?
Yeah, the Gators, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of my alma maters, but I did my undergrad and grad there, both in business and international business.
Wow.
And then
MBA?
Yeah, international MBA. So it's kind of like it was an MBA program that had kind of like an international twist to it.
So what's the plan when you're pursuing an international MBA? Were you thinking I'm going to be like this cosmopolitan and worldwide businessman, maybe a diplomat? I mean, what was going through your mind there?
I just kind of like the idea of having generalized business acumen because it really opens up a really wide spectrum of what kind of options that you had.
Cool.
I always wanted to do something where I was the creative end of it, where I was kind of part of the incubus for the creativity and the outcome and the production in the whole system itself, And I didn't really know exactly what I was doing coming out of college in terms of what industry I'd be landing in, but I was looking at a lot of interesting things, and I ended up falling into the veterinary pharmaceutical industry. So pretty niche, pretty neat
How'd
industry.
you fall into that? The influence of your mom?
Actually, no. I mean, I was looking at a lot of human companies at the time. I was looking at some other industries as well. Marketing was really where I was kind of focusing in. Also, I was looking at international things to be able to do expat, positions, and ended up just kind of getting in line with a friend of a friend that was working in the industry, knowing I was looking at the human pharmaceutical business. I ended up kind of engaging with that industry and liking it, and just kind of started from there. And so I started with a smaller U.S. company, which was later bought by a larger global veterinary pharmaceutical company. So we grew over the almost 18 years that I was there. But the issue was, as I entered this company kind of going on a perspective of going overseas to increase their European presence, but then we got bought by a major global power, so we ended up staying in the U.S. So I never got to really, circulate as much with the international side of what I went to school for. But in the same time, I enjoyed it. I worked with business owners, which veterinarians I felt were good people to work with because they're business owners that take a lot of risk when they open up. They're applying a skill the best they know how, but in an area where they're not really trained for, which was business. And so I kind of liked the idea of coming in and helping them, with the business aspects so they could focus on the medicine aspect of it, the science aspect more, And so that was where I felt that I was a good piece. And I got to hang out with animals all the time, so.
I love it. So how would you characterize, and you've kind of done it really well already, how would you characterize yourself as an entrepreneur? Are you the the vision, the macro guy? Are you the executor, the practical, the grassroots guy, the guy that's making it a reality? Are you the marketing guy? Are you the finance guy? Are you all the above?
Yeah, I would go
You'd
with
say
that.
all the above?
I would say all the above. I mean, I'm kind of one of those people that whether I'm in the kitchen or I'm working on a project or building something at the house or whatever, I kind of do it all. You know, I'm kind of a by myself worker. I mean, I work well with others. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of like to take all the aspects of a project and route that out in my head and execute it myself. You know, obviously there's certain points where you need a team, you know, and you know, so it's beyond my, you know, purview or my skill set. Then of course, relying on good people to do things with you is fantastic. But yeah, in terms of Rockfish and in terms of starting this business, it's been a one-man show. I mean, I can't say that. I've had support from many different aspects, but the nitty-gritty, I get into the details. I like the marketing aspect to it, but I like the minutia as well. So whether it's cleaning kegs or, you know, working with imaging for marketing projects, or if it's actually brewing the beer or serving, you know, serving customers, you know, those are all kind of things that I like because there's a people aspect to it, there's a personal aspect, and you know, it kind of works with my personality pretty well.
I love it. You got folks from Devil's Backbone watching right now. Star Hill team tuned into the stream right now. Give it a like, give it a share on any of the streams. Dustin Keith, greatest rep of all time. You're talking to you right now. Dustin, thank you for leaving that comment. If you'd like to relay Peter a comment, just put it in the comment section of any of the boxes, any of the Facebook pages you're watching. We're live on 12 Facebook pages right now. Margaret Matthews, welcome to the program. Let's throw this to you here. How did you land in Charlottesville? A guy that could be anywhere in the world, a guy that's got a foundation educationally that could probably fit any sector really in the world. A guy who's nomadic from childhood. Mm-hmm. Is that safe?
Yeah, sure. I haven't been anywhere longer than Charlottesville, so that I've been here longer than any other place I've lived. So.
How'd you land here?
It just kind of, I was in my last career, I was looking at shifting my geographic region in which I managed. It was a choice between moving north from Maryland or south, and it was not a really hard decision to go south. I was familiar already with Charlottesville by traveling through here for work, just loved it. And you know, worked in Richmond a lot and just all over Virginia in general. And I don't think there's any other place in Virginia I'd like to live. It's just, Charlottesville's just a fantastic town. You know, I've raised both my kids here. They've gone through the whole school system. Couldn't be more happy with where I live. So, you know, if I were to go anywhere else, I would think I'd always keep roots in Charlottesville. So, yeah.
Living in the Greenbrier neighborhood, you're in the heart of the city.
Yeah.
You just mentioned kids matriculated through the Renaissance School. We've been trying to get Jay Pun of the music department on this show with some of his talented students a number of times. One of our tenants, Sarah McDowell, her husband, I believe, is the chairman of the board at the Renaissance School. So it's like everything in this community, which you've probably realized, is like not 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's like 3 degrees apart, especially the longer you've been here. Do you like that aspect of it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's not too large where it's you know, a town that can drive you crazy and you don't know anybody, but it's not small enough where you're always running into the same people all the time. So it keeps it fresh, but you know, you're always guaranteed to see people you know and connect with in the community without it being just a tiny place. So,
right.
It's perfect, yeah.
So you get into the game as a home brewer. Walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been homebrewing as a hobby for, 18 years maybe or so, 18, 19 years. And it started, you know, I think it was really early 2000s. My wife at the time got me like a beer kit, you know, like a Mr. Beer kit kind of thing. And that was the bug, right? I made a couple great tasting beers. I really enjoyed it.
Were the first ones great tasting?
Yeah, they were good. You know,
really?
Because you hear the stories a lot of times. Oh, and it happens, right?
I've had a lot of home brew.
Yeah.
Where it's not.
I think if you mix just that creative personality kind of spirit, like if you're decent in the kitchen, you know, and you're good at like estimating and you kind of like the science, those three factors will really attribute well to making a good home brew, you know, and getting into the fun of it. Everybody gets something else from that hobby, but homebrewers in general put a lot of thought and craft into their creation because they're making something at home of something they love, right? It's beer. I mean, they love beer, you know. My generation was, I think, the last generation that grew up without craft brews in the scene, you know, when I was starting to drink beer and stuff. 43.
Okay, dang, okay,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so, you know, I guess the next generation kind of was, we had Sam Adams, we had Sierra Nevada, right? That, maybe, this, but the next generation kind of grew up with going to craft breweries that during that kind of blow up kind of period of time where it's kind of a staple, and it was nice to see because that really helped the beer industry really pick up. In terms, it also helped the homebrewing industry pick up. I mean, there was just from 2005 to 2015, it was just a fantastic growth in the homebrewing industry. You saw all sorts of new, avenues of entrepreneurship within the industry, great new products, new equipment, just more access for people to make incredible brew at home. I mean, my personal opinion, there's no better beer than a fresh beer from a home brewer that knows how to do it right. I love breweries too, but as we've had this big influx of breweries where some are well past saturated, saturation points in certain aspects, you find yourself wading through a lot of mediocre craft brew, and it's like, okay, now it's gotten to that point where it's kind of leveled off. You've got a lot of brewers out there, so what are people doing differently? How are they actually connecting to what made beer good in the first place? What was that special thing that turned them into putting their hobby into a career? And that's what I thought really hard about was, I brewed. I was kind of a closet brewer for, probably 10 or 12 years, so I brewed for myself, my friends, just really enjoyed it, got a lot of
feedback, positive
gives
feedback.
You more
confidence.
Everybody loved the beer, right? Everybody loved the beer. Everybody loved the beer. I love the beer. I'm my biggest critic of this stuff. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to dive into the community because there's Facebook communities, there's online stuff, experimental brewing and brewlosophies and stuff like that. Great ways for other brewers to connect that are really just into that hobby. And I just found myself really just diving deeper and deeper into that hole to a point where I was focusing more on my hobby than my career, and that kind of gave me. I thought, it's like, this might be a good time, and it was a good time for me to kind of leave that industry and jump into something where I can keep the homebrewing aspect to it, which is the real backbone of this operation, is to keep it small, keep it so people, general public, not just homebrewers, can actually experience what a incredibly fresh, well-crafted hand small batch beer can taste like. Not that they can't get great beer everywhere else, but different systems have different outcomes, and you make different beers based on what kind of situation you're in. So I have a little more flexibility on kind of tailoring towards the homebrew side of things, but also just making generally great beer.
You got a question coming in. This is from Steve Henderson. He says, I've met your guest, Jerry, at Fifth Seasons. I'm very excited about his brewery opening. I live in the 10th and Page neighborhood, and I'm curious if he suggests a certain type of beer to start with as a home brewer myself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can never go wrong with just starting off with like an amber ale or a pale ale.
That's the easiest?
I think so. Yeah, obviously there's lagers and ales. Lagers take a little bit more technical expertise and a little bit more time and patience and knowledge. So you start with an ale, a general ale, like a pale ale or a amber ale, something like that doesn't require a lot of input in terms of ingredients, and go from there. I think that my biggest suggestion I give to homebrewers, because I work at Fifth Season and I manage the homebrewing department there, when I see new brewers come in, I always recommend get a book. I always say How to Brew, John Palmer, great book. Get the knowledge base in your head, start at the easiest side of things with kits, and just go from there, and just kind of work your way up to where you want to be, and you kind of find your rhythm that way. So,
Christopher Eagle, welcome to the show. Give it a like and a share on any of the 12 Facebook pages you're watching. Thank you for joining us, Champion Brewing Company. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty. We have folks at Pro Renata that are asking about the rig. Miriam Halpern, hello, Dr. H. Welcome to the program. Let's talk about Rockfish. You're at a crossroads. You mentioned that you are going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of craft beer and home brewing. Mm-hmm. You realize this is a passion in your life, and you want to do a career change from pharmaceutical sales to veterinarian, hospitals and clinics, to potentially being a brewer yourself. At any point of this crossroads where you're like, what the hell am I thinking? Is this really a good effing idea? I have 2 kids here.
Yeah.
Is this a smart move?
Well, it's funny. I had this cat when I lived in the last house I lived in Charlottesville, and he was dead on the side of the road. and I went and scooped him up because somebody called me and said, I think your cat's dead. I went and scooped him up, buried him, his whole thing. That night, we're sitting around drinking some beers on the back deck. Everybody's, we're just kind of chilling out, and the cat showed up.
What?
Yeah, so.
No.
Right. So,
tell me that story.
It was just, he looked just like the damn cat, right? I mean, so I thought.
So the cat that was dead was not your cat?
Right, it wasn't my cat. I buried the wrong cat.
Holy
right?
shit.
We had a little bit of gathering. So it ended up being like a good situation, right? Because everybody was happy.
Right,
the
your
cat
cat's
was
alive.
Right.
Yeah.
So when the cat did die a few years later, it wasn't so bad, right? I thought about opening a brewery about 6 or 7 years ago, and I kind of went through that whole thought process. And you have to dive deep inside. You have to decide, do I want to take my hobby to a career? Because so many hobbies die or careers die because they try to make their hobby into something that they can make money from,
Right.
and ends up destroying both.
Right.
So you really have to dive deep inside to decide, do you want to do this as for work? Do you want to slave over this? Do you want to deal with the numbers and all the other aspects that are outside brewing beer? And I did that, right? And I went in and I dove into the market, kind of learned that, and just kept my eye on it ever since. Even though I never pulled the trigger on it, I ended up going in a different direction with a nano brewery instead of a microbrewery. And that'd be something where you're talking about 5 barrels or less. And a barrel is like 31, 33 gallons, So
layman's
smaller,
terms, nano versus micro.
So nano breweries are anywhere between typically like 1 to 5 barrels of beer in terms of production capacity for your brew house, right?
Okay.
It could go to 7, it could go down to 3. There's different aspects, but generally 1 to 5. So you're talking about anywhere between 30 gallons of beer per cycle to all the way to 275, 300 gallons of beer, right? So somewhere in there that you can produce at one time. You go bigger than that, you're still a microbrewery, but your production capacity goes up. The volume physics and dynamics change. Aspects of how your brewery is set up change in terms of how you conduct your actual process. So keeping it small keeps it more like a homebrew system, right? If that makes sense. Because homebrewers even have a 1-barrel system. That's not terribly uncommon. It's not very common, but most times they make 5, 10-gallon batches at a time. So if you get an idea of the equipment, I'm on a 3.5-barrel system. I can make a 110-gallon batch beer at a time. I've got 4 fermenters in the brewery and another bright tank, so I can make multiple sets of beer and have those kind of things set up. But that's really what defines a nano, and the benefit there is the beer is going to have to be brewed more often, correct? Right? So you're going to have fresher beer. So the beer's not going to be you're not going to be sitting on beer very long, no matter kind of what style you brew, because you just simply don't have the volume there. That keeps things innovative and fresh. It gives me the opportunity to really diversify the offerings at the tap room and be able to kind of offer seasonals.
I love that.
New stuff that homebrewers are doing right now. Not that, because a lot of times,
Keeps you nimble.
Yeah, it keeps you nimble, right? I mean, you think of like a New England IPA, right?
Yeah.
Lots of people now.
I love a New England IPA.
5 years ago, the only people that knew anything about a New England IPA or were doing them were homebrewers. And you get a couple.
Now it's everywhere.
Now you got microbreweries got their hands on it, and then it went from there. Now you got bigger commercial, outfits doing the same thing. And again, it started off as just something really cool. And now you got brute IPAs. You got lots of things that are start at the homebrewer side, get developed kind of on an experimental level, and then work their way up into the commercial area. And so that way I can be closer to the innovative side of that and be able to kind of shoot things out that are a lot of fun, that are new and people haven't seen before.
I love it.
Or stuff that's been swept under the rug and hasn't been brought out of the closet.
It's like the entrepreneur of brewing.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Well, the point here is to connect the public with what home brewing is like, but also have the experience of going to a great brew pub and having good beer. I'm not going to subject these guys to being test rats, right?
Sure.
I want to have conventional, traditional styles, and that's what I'm opening up with. I'm opening up with things like, California Common. You can't get a steam beer around here that much. Not many brewers make California Commons, but or having an amber, just sets the season. Something that's nice and malty and good for cool weather. I'm doing a good pale ale, a standard flagship kind of beer, and New England IPA as well. I have one of those on tap coming up when I open. So those are the kind of beers that I started easy to approach, suits all different kind of tastes. And then once I get all my 8 taps filled up, which is what I'm going for, I'll have a rotating 8 beers going at any one time. So That's the goal.
I love it. I love it. Michael Fletcher, great guy with fabulous insight. Loving the interview. I think he's watching in Chicago, Illinois right now. Folks outside Charlotte, North Carolina watching right now. Folks outside Gainesville watching right now. J. William Boothman II is giving you some props right now. Give it a like, give it a share on any of the streams you are watching. I'm going to get to the rig question from Pro Renata. We'll get to the future question from Star Hill. And we'll get to the question about the trail from Champion here in a matter of moments. I have a couple questions first beforehand. Talk to me about the location. I think obviously, launching a business, especially one that interfaces with the market from a B2C standpoint, which is obviously a tap room, the location is paramount. And you have a tremendous location. I mean, right. I can't think of like a better one, and I'm not marginalizing anyone. You're in the heart of the city. You're coming right next to where Dairy Market and Dairy Central are going to blow up in the spring of 2020. We've had Chris Henry of Stony Point design build on this program, and his vision for Dairy Market and Dairy Central is freaking epic. Yeah. I think the 10th and Page neighborhood, and we won't get into the politics of this, but I think it's very clear the 10th and Page neighborhood is going through some tremendous gentrification and will be a very different neighborhood in the next 2 to 3 years as tax revenues increase as a byproduct of Dairy Market and Dairy Central. I think that's safe to say. That's a topic for another show. So the location, I mean, heart of the city. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really lucked out on that spot. I mean...
You had inside connection.
I did. Well, I mean, I can give you the backstory. I mean, I looked, I'd say back in January, December last year, I was looking at a lot of properties around Charlottesville. I definitely wanted to be in the city. You know, I think I was sitting around with my girlfriend Paige, and we were talking about it, and she had mentioned it was something I had thought about earlier. But she's like, maybe you should go look at Fifth Season because they're the only homebrew store in the area, right? So if you're a home brewer, you know Fifth Season. That's
Is there one up 29 North and Green?
There was that little shop. Right. I think it was like a vape shop before. They're gone.
Okay, they are?
Yeah, I think they're gone. Yeah, I mean, the closest homebrew store is either across the mountain over in the valley or Richmond.
Right.
So, you know, and I've been a customer there for years, and I always love the store. And it's just a unique store in general. And I like the location. You know, I really enjoyed watching Kevin over at Random Row, you know, build his, you know, brewery. And those guys, I think he had a good team with him. And
Bradley, part of that team.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they just did a fantastic job over there. And I just liked how that's just helping that corridor is like the other corridor connecting UVA to downtown. It's a busy little spot, and it just has the building I'm in used to be a Buick dealership, and she's like, yeah, maybe you should talk to them about, you know, opening a brewery there, and you know, that might be a good spot. And I went in and I talked to the store manager. He was all for it. At the same time, they had cleared out the space where I'm now occupying for classes, to build a classroom and do something in terms of educational. And to me, I felt that would be a good opportunity to come in and add that education.
There's a lot of synergy there.
Yeah, a lot of synergy. You got homebrewers coming in talking about beer, thinking about beer. You got garden people coming in there. It's a busy little store. And it's just a great location to kind of fill that gap. Like you said, the dairy building, that's just going to be great because you're going to have commercial, you're going to have residential there, you're going to have Star Hill coming in there.
It's going to be an epicenter of commerce.
It's going to be great to have more breweries along that thing. It's just everybody gets more out of it in terms of in the beer industry, you know, and I just love the Charlottesville brewers here are all fantastic people. I mean, the community's been incredibly not only welcoming and enthusiastic for, you know, fellow brewers to come into the game.
What's the saying? It's a rising tide, good for all ships.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think brewers are just in that kind of mindset in terms of helping each other out. It's a very, you know, social kind of community where a lot of times other kind of things where you look at just strict up competitors, you wouldn't be really interacting much to increase each other's, you know, businesses, you know, but we do, you know, and that's the good thing about our brewers here.
What other spots did you look at?
You know, things that were for rent. I looked at that Clock Tower place. I think there's a little distillery in there.
Yeah, it's the owner, Hunter Smith, his son is doing canned cocktails, selling them to breweries and restaurants and grocery stores. So like you can get a G&T in a can from there.
That's awesome.
Which is novel.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was a cute spot. I just thought, you know, I was looking at the...
That would have been expensive as fuck.
I looked at the place, you know, in Belmont where they had local barbecue. That place, you know, that was kind of rotating over. It was like barbecue joint for a while, and then it was
That would've been a good spot.
It was a soul speed. Now it's another barbecue joint.
Now it's Comal.
Yeah, and they're pretty good. I've come in there and
Beano's.
Yep. So I looked at that spot as well. I thought that was a cool spot. Looked over at the McIntyre Plaza. They had some new spots opening up, and just generally around town. And just kind of ended up settling on that. I liked the location. The people that I work with there are great. And at the same time, they were looking they needed a department head for the homebrewing section because the store is big. It's a big gardening store. There's a lot of products there, and there's 4 other stores in North Carolina. So it's a kind of a big outfit. So it's a matter of they needed somebody in there to help with inventory and manage that department and help homebrewers on an experience level, so somebody that can really help their clients out to kind of develop that value addedness that store was.
The value prop.
Exactly. And so with that, having a brewery next door, something to bring business that people would not normally come to Fifth Season, and also people coming to the brewery that not normally would be coming to the brewery, we share that crossroads of people that, come in and they can all experience, the different kind of diversified, things that we have to offer both in that same location.
The businessman in me seems so much like vertical integration there. I can totally see, and I'm not speaking for you, I'm just throwing this out there. I can totally see a home brewer competition. The winner of the competition gets a tap at your brewery for a short period of time to showcase the winning homebrew.
Oh, we already have one. I mean, we had our local homebrew club is Camera.
It's Camera?
Yeah, the Charlottesville area Masters of Real Ale.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're the local homebrew club. They're a big outfit. We meet every month, and we had a porter contest last week. The brewer that won that contest is brewing up in my system in about a week and a half. We're going to put a porter together. So, yeah, they get to come in, they get to brew on the big system, and I'm doing that too with homebrewers at the stores, that if they bring in, if they feel like they accomplished something really good and they want to bring it and share it, we'll taste it, check it out, and then brew it up on the big system with those guys. So, I really want to be collaborative with the homebrewing community, obviously with the other brewers in town too, and kind of work with that. So far, I think I've met everybody, most people from the other breweries in town, because they come into the store getting stuff too when they're in a pinch or when they need something on that side, and they've all been just fantastic people, So I think it'll be a nice scene to be in, and again, I think it'll be a nice way to kind of create more of an experience when you go to that store, whether you're going to the brewery or Fifth Season or both. It's just a nice situation. I got a little cafe going, so sort of lattes and cappuccinos, and it could be a cool Saturday morning. It's not like beer time yet, but hey, it'd be a great time to get a cafe item or something like that. So just different things there.
I love it.
Yeah.
James Watson, welcome to the show. Carly Tiegler, welcome to the show. Aaron King, one of the top people at Feast in the Purple Building on Main Street, watching the program right now. Give it a like, give it a share. We're going to get to these questions here in a matter of moments. We're live on 12 Facebook pages with Peter, who is the entrepreneur, the brewer, and the visionary behind Rockfish Brewing Company, which is Charlottesville's newest brewery on Preston Avenue, adjacent to Fifth Season. A lot of questions I want to throw to you. What do you say to these people? Charlottesville is a community just under 50,000 people. Central Virginia in totality, with the outer counties like Louisa, Albemarle, Orange, Fluvanna, et cetera, a community of 300,000 people. There are folks that say that we are at a saturation or tipping point from a brewery standpoint in Charlottesville. I respectfully disagree with those folks, but you know more about this than I do. What do you make of that comment?
I would disagree, but it's not a wrong perspective. I mean, you could say that looking from the outside, and you could think that. I think if you look at the brewery situation in the area, it looks saturated. But if you zero into Charlottesville City, it is not. And so if you look at Albemarle County, Nelson County, yeah, sure, we got all sorts of trails of breweries and areas and wineries and cideries and all these great things. But in the city itself, no. I mean, everything is growing. It's becoming more vibrant. You're seeing that Preston corridor just blow up. Walkability is a big thing that's becoming more and more. You see scooters going around, and that's great. But people are wanting to be out and on foot and be able to connect in corridors on a good pathway. And
sans car.
Yeah, it'd be not having a car, or like you said, we mentioned like an Uber,
CVille hop-on tours,
a hop-on or something like that. But the whole point of getting outside, being more active, and going to local businesses on foot, and not having to drive there all the time, kind of just melds well with the whole style of Charlottesville. But yeah, so I think the reason I did, and I wasn't going into standard-sized brewery. I wanted to go nano because that was something that wasn't filled in Charlottesville. We don't have a true standalone nano brewer. We've got other nano size. I mean, Dan over at Wild Wolf is doing a cool job with their having it, and it's his pilot brewery, right? So they can do a lot of experimental fun stuff because they have a small system, but then they have a big system out there. You have Hardywood in town, as their pilot system. They're a smaller system, but they're doing it for their bigger system. So I'm the only kind of just nano. There's been some other, I think, throws at it.
CVille Brewing Company. Yeah, now Stowing in Space.
Right. So I think it just some management changes kind of.
Yeah, he was never there.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking him.
Yeah.
The beer was not good.
Yeah, I didn't hear the great. I unfortunately never got a chance to check those guys out. I didn't know they were in business until they were out of business, so it was one of those passing ships, kind of thing. But no, overall, by being a big beer fan myself and going to all the breweries in town regularly for years, I can tell you, there's no lack of interest of trying different brews because it's not really as much about, it's not good to have two breweries. That just gives more varietal options for people to try. And people that love to go to breweries like to try different things, right? Yeah. And they like to say, hop to one brewery. You can walk to this brewery, walk to that brewery. It's going to be a really nice situation. We'll have our own ale trail in town. We're actually connected, not to mention the Charlottesville Ale Trail, which is a fantastic situation and which I'm part of now. So I'm the 7th brewery on that trail there because it's in Charlottesville City, and then of course you have those other breweries that are right there in the county. So just so much to do. I think that'll be really helpful to kind of have a smaller brewery added to the mix.
Who's doing beer really well in Charlottesville from your standpoint?
Oh man, well that's a tough question. I mean, because I get great beers from every brewery here.
We're lucky.
Yeah, we're lucky. We have the people that have just come in and actually are the brewers in this town, whether they're the owners or the brewers or whatnot. They're just highly experienced people that do a great job. I really liked Random Row a lot. I'm really a big fan of their lagers. I think they do a fantastic job. They're really crisp and the atmosphere is nice. I've always been a big fan of 3 Notch. I think they're fantastic. I've always loved their 40 Mile and those kind of things. So
the Minuteman's my favorite beer.
Minuteman, yeah. Ghost is another one of my favorites.
That's my wife's favorite.
I love that. Star Hill, I mean, geez, I've been drinking Star Hill since before Charlottesville. I mean, it was one of those things where you came through and you got hold of it and you're like, check out what I got, and so they were kind of one of those early innovators.
The oldest brewery in Charlottesville, Star Hill.
Star Hill, yeah.
South Street months after Star Hill opened.
Yeah, I know there was always that little debate, right? I mean, Star Hill or South Street has the old building, right, but not as much. And in fact, the head brewer that used to be at South Street before I think Blue Moon had bought those guys, Jacques. He actually hooked me up with all my all grain stuff. So when I went to all grain brewing, 15 years ago or more, he's like, here's all my old stuff, So it was a brewer in town that actually got me hooked on home brewing even more. Ended up now having a brewery myself. So it's just been a nice transition, a nice kind of apex to this point because I've been excited.
Do you have a favorite, a local favorite beer?
I gotta tell you,
that's not yours.
I love the Crown Lager from Random Row. It's just my favorite. I go there. They have $2 beers on Thursday nights. I mean, I work a block down the road. Right. I get off at 7. Where do you think I'm going to go?
Right.
Yeah. I love the Crown Lager, and I've been drinking the 40 Mile for years, and I just love that beer. I don't know. Those guys. They had. I went to their old location more than their new one.
You're talking 3 Notch?
Yeah.
By McGrady's.
Yeah.
Where Dairy Market is.
Yeah, where Dairy Market is, and I just really liked it. I know they were doing a sour house there for a while, but then it was changed over. So I haven't gone there, but I still, because they're in distribution and stuff, we can get their beers from local markets.
We got Pro Renata wanting to know about the rig.
Oh, right.
This is like the technical question.
Yeah. Well, I've got a 3.5 barrel, 3 vessel system electric. 4 fermenters, 3.5 barrel, and 1 bright tank. So he would know what that means. It's a McMindes system, so it's just one of the brands in the industry. Something I felt was a really nice system. I talked to John Blickman back in early March in Asheville. I was down there for a conference, and just nothing but good things, so I went with that system. But 3.5 barrel, meaning 110 gallon batches, electric heated. So I have big.
It looks impressive. We got it on screen.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks great.
Well, you know what? Everybody loves a bunch of stainless.
Yeah.
Stainless is great.
Good.
It looks beautiful, and beer is in there, and it's going to come out, and it's just a good feeling all around. So.
I love talking. This is my favorite aspect of what I do. I'm grinding 70 hours a week, probably just like you. This is a very small aspect of our business, but my favorite aspect by far. I love the energy that comes with like the founder or the entrepreneur that launches the business, where it's not just like their career, it's like their life.
Right.
You know, it's like I often say our business is 11 years old. I have 2 kids. I have this 18-month-old little boy and this 11-year-old. And they need similar things. They both need to be nurtured and fed, food and revenue. They both need to be saying, no, 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 that's the wrong way to do this. We're going to go in this track. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Like, you
It's
just
your baby.
embody
Yeah.
this energy.
Yeah.
It's contagious. Talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's been a passion for years. I love it. And when I started diving more into the science and the social aspect of the home brewing, I've been, well, you know, I think in my last career, I had a lot of potential to do a lot of big things, but I always was hitting a lot of barriers because it either wasn't in my job description or it just wasn't the right time, right? Because there's so many bureaucratic decisions that had to be made for any kind of plan to take place or for some project to take off. And
Now you dictate the pace and tempo.
It built up in me over many years. I've got the business experience and the know-how for doing a small business, so it was like a refreshing like dam letting to kind of let that out, to be able to put all that energy into Rockfish and in terms of a project. And also, I really enjoyed working at Fifth Season. I mean, it was just like, it's an amazing place where I can connect with the community. I met more people locally just being there since January. And of course, the homebrewing scene, just the people that come in there are pretty cool folks. And it really connected me to the scene, be able to market, to bounce off, to get ideas, to get, you know, different sort of enthusiastic sort of, you know, trials and things that people love to do because I tried to incorporate all local homebrewers in different aspects. So I used a local carpenter for building the bar. I used a local homebrewer for my insurance agent. I used another local homebrewer for my photos and my imagery for the media. And other ones for doing the plumbing and things like that. So I'm trying to like keep that scene really local, real, and that just gave me a lot of energy for it. I've got a lot of energy in general. Myself, I'm a pretty fast-paced kind of worker, but at the same time, I've had no life for, you know, since February because I've been putting all my time and energy into work and getting
Making this
project
dream a reality.
and being a dad at the same time and getting a kid off the, you know, just all this stuff. It's been a busy year. It's probably been the busiest year I've worked on in a long time, and it just made me think, well, I was not putting my time to great use in my last career as much as I could have. So now I'm feeling a lot more rewarded because I'm seeing the benefits of
fulfillment.
Yeah, and it just makes me more excited about it. So now I can put all the energy into making great beer.
I think you're going to crush it here, dude.
I think it's going to be great. So far, the beers taste good. I got 4 beers in. I've tasted them. I'm excited.
I mean, and we'll wind down with a couple more questions. Amy Benson, the co-owner of Moose's by the Creek, watching right now. Love you, Amy Benson. Allison Fowler, Keisha, Mike Stanley, Ray Cadell. Ray Cadell just shared the stream. Give it a like, give it a share. Anderson Seafood, our newest sponsor here, Animal Connection and McIntyre Plaza. Thank you for being part of this program as well. Throw a few more questions to you. With your experience at Fifth Seasons running the home brewery department, dude, it's like you almost like could market, do a trial and error, market test, crowdsource the idea before coming to market with like arguably the most refined palates in the community, just outside of maybe like the Daniel Wolfs, the Dave Warwicks, the Robbie Stones, if you may.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that's part of it, is being locked in with the local homebrewing community gives you just exclusive feedback. I mean, most people that are going to have a great beer aren't tuned to looking at, it's like a musician listening to another song. You're going to hear it differently than just somebody that likes music, right? And it's the same thing with having those homebrewers there. And in fact, my home brew system, which I still am an avid home brewer, that's not going to change, is my pilot system now. So now I'm doing experimental things. I'm doing really fun stuff. I'm pushing the envelope on a lot of things at home, so I can create new ideas and bounce the ideas to people that come into the store and get that feedback. That's the beautiful thing about Camera, our local homebrew group. It's it's you bring your stuff in, everybody brings their stuff in, and you get feedback. You get people that are BJCP judge qualified people or Cicerone, people that know what they're doing, and homebrewers in general know what to look for. So yeah, you're right. It's a great benefit to being there at Fifth Season.
What is the 2 more questions? What's the long game here?
Well, I'd like to continue brewing in this town for as long as the foreseeable future. I'm not trying to become something huge that goes beyond the scope. The whole purpose is being a nano brewery. I don't think I would brew on a system bigger than 5 barrels. And I wouldn't want a system where you can't get your hands on every part of the process. It just becomes something different than where I want to be in terms of what kind of beer I want to produce, and it goes against the kind of grain as a home brewer. So, but yeah, I want to keep Rockfish, a happy place for as long as possible. I wouldn't mind, like we talked about, doing something similar in another location, whether it be in the same general area, Charlottesville area, or maybe another place in Virginia, to have another nano in terms of a Rockfish. Again,
I've always thought something like this would crush it in like the Hollymead Forest Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Hollymead and Forest Lakes is starving for something like this.
Sure.
Same with maybe the Zion's Crossroads or Pantops.
Right.
Because they got nothing.
Right. No, it's true. I think the closer I could stay to this area, the better.
Easier to manage.
It's easier to manage. You still get your hands on the process.
And the brand, you don't have to drive more brand awareness.
Yeah, exactly. And you're talking about different markets, and this is the one I know, and this is the one I'm intimate with, and I think, but for now, I've got my hands full. I'm opening up in 2 weeks, so I'm going to worry about that. So,
that's my last question.
Yeah,
you got a lot of folks watching right here, who, what, when, where, why, when you open.
Yeah.
Just close on that.
Yep. I'm going to open, grand opening is November 2nd. That's Saturday.
Okay.
So right after Halloween. So we're going to have food and all sorts of things going on, beer specials, whatnot, just kind of a fun time to come in and try the beer for the first time. I'll have 4 beers on tap. That's the first 4 out. And I'll have a little bit of a soft opening the week prior, probably Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll have some limited hours as well, so we can kind of work the system out, have those beers flowing, and make sure everything's good. So, so November 2nd is the big day. And like I said, last week in October, there'll be a little bit of a soft opening. So
I love it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was great.
Yeah, it was great. Guys, this is what we'll do with today's program. If you're watching, we're going to archive the show on the I Love CVille network. You can find the show in totality on ilovecville.com. We'll take the audio and we'll turn it into a podcast on iTunes. And for 30 days following today, we'll syndicate today's show across the I Love CVille network, which is 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, a daily e-newsletter that goes out to 108,000 inboxes, 3rd largest Instagram community in the area, and of course on ilovecville.com and on iTunes. We close the show by asking everybody to embody the golden rule. We do not make this about religion. We make this about treating the people you come across in life how you want to be treated yourself. It's the golden rule. It's a simple concept, but it's a concept that I think is unfortunately lost. Some in Charlottesville, some in the Commonwealth, very much in the country. Golden rule, guys. Jerry Miller, it's the I Love CVille Show. At 3 o'clock today, we'll focus and have our animal show. It's What's Barking Local, powered by Animal Connection, where every Wednesday at 3, we showcase the fabulous animal community in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Have a good afternoon. Take care, guys. Dude, it was easy. You crushed it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, good in the setting.
Well, I talk pretty fast, but
Yeah.
other than that.
No, you're really good at the setting. You have a gift for a gab, and we're talking about your passion. One more thing we got to do.